my name is Michelle. For those who don't know me, I first met Mark 15 years ago at Big Day. And he attended the funeral of my cousin who was brutally murdered in a domestic assault. With all the publicity and everything that was going on in the city of Richmond during that time, Mark came to the funeral with a bunch of his friends. And I found out later they actually paid for the repast. And it touched me so when I met him, you know, he introduced himself, and I immediately melted into his arms. And that day he became my brother. And I always think about how you know, how it's amazing that somebody touches you. You don't know us. You didn't know the Gillison family at all. But he just came right, weaseled his way right on in. All my cousins, you know, on Facebook, he kept up with everybody. You look on his Facebook page, you see all these people like friends in common, they're all my cousins, my aunts, and everybody. He kept personal touch with everybody. I laugh at him when I call it Pastor Junior, because I'm one too. I was raised a PK kid in the church that I serve at now. My aunt and uncle are actually pastors, so I don't get away with anything. But my relationship with Mark was not only friendship, it was also churchship, if that's the word. It was also kidship, marriageship, everything else. You know, he and my husband were like this, both bearded dudes, both looking like Santa Claus. So I'm tickled to look at the black hair pictures because I'm like, well, who's this dude? But it's always amazing how he interweaves itself into our family. And it was like, we didn't know a time that Mark wasn't there. So when a lot of others couldn't come, my husband's like, I gotta play that play today. I like, Mark will tell you to go. Charlotta had something to cater. I said, Mark will tell you to go. And I said, Mark will tell you to go. He would want you to go about being you. And he would probably be fussing at me right now for boo-hooing. But he meant so much to me. I'm like, when my younger sister, who's 47, had a massive stroke years ago, Mark would come down the mountain to visit. And it was nothing to look up and he'd be at my front door like, I thought you were sick. But he would be at the front door. And when I was going, I was telling somebody earlier, when I was going through cancer treatment 7 years ago, I had to have chemotherapy, and on my second round of chemotherapy, I lost all of my hair. We were comparing bald heads, and for the first time, he had more hair. So, that was the type of relationship we had. We could talk and then jump. Hope I don't offend anybody, but we used to laugh about the fact that how he knew more about music and culture, because I was raised a PK kid. I didn't know anything about rap music or anything else, but Mark knew all of that stuff. And I like, Mark, you're more black than I am. And he would say, no, you're just more vanilla than I am. That was the type of relationship that we had. And then, he had come to my church. I don't know where his tie thing came from. He must have brought a tie here. But when he came to Redeemer Love, I never saw a tie. I did see him in the fellowship hall right much, but I never saw a tie. But like I said, he was there for chemotherapy. My younger son had to have a kidney transplant. We weren't really having visitors yet because he had protocol. And he comes in with a fishing pole. And I'm like, who going fishing? Which one of us? But unfortunately, we never got to go fishing because my son was like, why is he bringing me a fishing pole? We don't fish. But he would find excuses and ways to come in. He was always there when, when things going on with COVID. We had just moved to a much larger building in our church, and he wanted to come do the ozone for the church. I'm like, Mark, for real? He was always he wasn't himself unless he was doing something. He had to be doing something. My husband had a blood clot at one time. Here comes Mark. I'm like, you can almost count 10, 9, 8, 9. So when these things started happening to him, and I really appreciate that y'all have kept with the protocol of the songs that he wanted. I'm trying to clap. Because one of the last conversations I had with Mark and I talked about somebody, you can't go nowhere until you write a book. And he told me, you just being selfish because you don't want me to go nowhere. And I said, you're right. I said, you need to write a book. And then we got to the point Okay, write a mini something. And then when I knew, I said, at least write some letters to hope. So I'm glad he did that. But listening to the songs that you chose today, he wrote a letter to me out of these songs. Because I can really feel his spirit and how bad he wanted to go to heaven. And I'm not going to lie. It tickled I'm 3 years older than Mark, but he was my big brother. And I didn't want him to go. I was being selfish. I'm like, there's not a world without Mark. So when those last couple of weeks he started cutting me off in those short conversations, I knew what he was doing. But I will say this, and it was the weirdest thing ever. Since I've been home during the pandemic, back when we had that little small earthquake years ago, in my living room, there was a little crack in my ceiling. And it was a stud that needed to be replaced. But I didn't know that. I thought the house was falling apart. It ain't gonna mark. And he goes, oh, don't worry about that. It's just whatever, so forth. A couple of weeks before he went down for the last time, Mark asked me about this stud and said, hey Mark, you said don't worry about it. He said get it fixed. The day that I got the phone call that he was gone, I had a contractor in the house fixing this stud. That I was watching the contractor on the ladder when I got the phone call. And I fell out of bed in the contractor and was like, oh, what's wrong with you? But it was like Mark said, go man. Oh. But that's the way he cared about people. You know, that's the way he really and truly cared about people. Every little fine detail. And that's the way, you know, my only regret is I never got up to him. But we used to laugh when he said something about a bad man in the house. I'm like, who? Right. Me? And then he started, you know, and we talked about all the cats. And he know I despise cats. I'm sorry, forgive me. I just can't deal with a cat. I'm like, we're gonna have to go somewhere where there's no cats and no neighbors. Yeah, it's the only way. So I rejoice knowing that he's in heaven where he wants to be, and he's happy, and he's eating stuff. Even though I wasn't happy with the fact that one of the times when he was in the hospital, he had got Uber Eats to bring him something he had no business. And I just happened to be on the phone when they delivered, and I'm like, you don't drop that in the trash. But that's the way he lived. He always wanted to be joyful about everything. So I'm really happy that he's in heaven. And when I imagine him in heaven, I imagine with my mama and all them cracking up when he telling my mama stuff he ain't got no business telling them. You know, did you know about your daughter? You know. So I really thank the family for blessing us with him. And that's all I can say. He was a gift.
Yes, he was.
15 years didn't seem like enough to me. But I know this is a time we're going to get an eternity. We're going to make all kind of noise. We're going to have a ball in eternity. And if you haven't found that place in Jesus yet, please do. Yeah, I'm a living witness. Somebody, you know, I don't know if you know who the comedian Marshall Warfield is. Used to play Roz on Night Court. She tried to argue with me recently that there is no God. I said, "Did you see me?" She said, "Are you saying that you're God?" I said, "No, I'm not saying I'm God. But if there is no God, there is no me, because I should have died 20 times from the time the day I was born." And the fact that even you are here to say there is no God proves there's God. And Mark is a living testimony that there is a God. As many times as he went down, not yet. I used to call him the comeback kid. And I'm sorry, I'm getting there. You can't give a minister a Paul Pittman, don't make a problem. So, but Mark was the comeback kid in ways you could not imagine. He was my brother. He was my Superman. He was a friend. And I look forward to rejoicing with him one day. Now, yeah, Mark, don't rush that. But I look forward to that. But then, you know, Mark was around, one of my second to the youngest grandchildren passed away. Mark was around for that. So I know, I'm like, he's up there with my Emmanuel. They're chilling. I said, your Uncle Marcus said that. So again, I thank you. I am so blessed. I didn't get a chance to meet you before. But I am so blessed. And I so much thank you. These are my sisters. You know, I be y'all on Facebook. You know, my nephew and so forth. Your niece, yeah, that was it. I'm just that brown auntie you gotta watch out for.
Oh, I love it.
Anybody else?
Oh, you did good. I figured just
That's all good.
this is for our sister here. My sister's here. My older sister. I love her.
Yeah, she's older.
Ma'am.
Wonderful. She's older.
Okay, your older sister.
Yeah.